Hi everyone. It's a lovely but brisk Saturday afternoon here in the Portland area on the 5th of October 2024. I was about to say 1924. Okay, actually, yes, 2024. And so far, amazingly quiet. So, fingers crossed about that. This is the 1907 Diary series. We have our last few days in the Crimea, and today is the day of the big expedition. It's the 24th of September, 1907. It's a Monday, and yes, Dmitri informed us yesterday that they would be making this big excursion on horseback and that it would be their last. And I can assure you, in case you're feeling some residual anxiety, that it does not involve a picnic. Hurrah, no picnic and no Aunt Minnie, as it turns out. So, all right, I can also tell you in advance that one thing Dmitri and I have in common is a rather discombobulated, not quite linear sense of time. So he's going to be giving us things not really in chronological order in this diary entry, and it's quite a long one, so I'm going to do it in two parts and end today before the detailed description of the main part of the excursion itself. All right, so here we go. Today I got up, as always, except as we expected, we didn't go swimming and had coffee earlier than usual and managed to study until 10:30. At 10:30 we went to the forest and we were there until around 4 o'clock. We had tea at the Hotel Rosia and got back around 7 o'clock. On the way there, it was not only not cold, but actually hot because the sun was out in full force. We had lunch at the Hotel Rosia. Everything went very well. Lunch was very good, except we were embarrassed by the big bouquet from the owner, which was ceremoniously brought in and put in a huge vase in the middle of the table. There weren't a lot of people when we had lunch, but there was one adjutant who recognized me, stood up, and bowed, which embarrassed me frightfully. At 1:30 we set off from Yalta, and in 2 hours we were already there, i.e. we had reached Le But. So that's, my French pronunciation is always bad. So But, B-U-T, meaning the goal, I believe, the destination. All right, so as anticipated, they did not go swimming, and that had something to do with horses being tired because of Miss June having gone to visit relatives in one of the coastal towns the day before. And so the big excursion, of course, is to the forest, and he tells us that they were there until around tea time, but then he jumps forward and mentions that they had tea at the Hotel Rosia and got home at 7 o'clock. So the Hotel Rosia, I really need to look up. It's in Yalta, and every time they're in Yalta, that is where they go. They never have lunch or tea anywhere else. So yeah, it must have been the place. It must have been the Ritz of Yalta. And I wonder if it's still there, or even just if the building is still there and if it's functioning as a hotel. I'm really curious about that, so I wish I'd looked that up. Okay, it's September, and it's hot because the sun is out, and they have lunch. So now we're going back in time again to the Hotel Rosia, this time for lunch, and lunch is good. Dmitri does usually note when he goes to a restaurant whether the food was good or not. But there's a couple incidents at the Hotel Rosia. Calling them incidents is a bit too much. But I maybe didn't choose a good translation for the person who sent the bouquet. I don't know if it was the owner of the hotel. Actually, he uses the word hostess. So it was a woman. I'm not sure if that was an assumption on his part, because he uses the passive verb form when he talks about the bringing of the huge vase to the huge bouquet that was then put in a huge vase in the middle of the table, and that I'm sure they recognized as a nice gesture, but at the same time it was embarrassing. It's not clear if the other people having lunch in the restaurant at the Hotel Rosia that day necessarily knew who they were. Kind of seems like maybe they didn't, or at least Dmitri makes the assumption that possibly they didn't. So it was embarrassing to have this giant bouquet delivered to the table. And then there's this adjutant who recognizes me, Dmitri says, gets up, bows, and that, you know, that's quite proper with royalty, right? You know, isn't that what you're supposed to do? So this is what makes me think that maybe Dmitri assumed that the people the other patrons in the restaurant didn't know that these were members of the imperial family. But at any rate, when he says the adjutant recognized me, does that mean that they have previously met, say, for instance, in Tsarskaya Selo or in Moscow, even though, you know, they've maybe never said anything to each other? At least they've been in each other's presence before now? Or does it simply mean that this adjutant recognizes that this is a Grand Duke? Dmitri makes it personal. He recognized me, not that he recognized Maria. So, you know, maybe he had been in Dmitri's presence before, but both of these things, Dmitri is 16 years old. Teenagers are easily embarrassed, and both of these things, with the bouquet and with the bow from the adjutant, embarrassed him, and he probably didn't know what to do when this man bowed to him, if he should acknowledge him in some way. And unfortunately, he doesn't tell us what he did. All right, so then after lunch, they set off from Yalta to go to this forest. It took them 2 hours to get there, so that made it 3:30, and then he says that they were back for tea around 4 o'clock. So I don't see how that could possibly be the case. There's something wrong here. If it takes them 2 hours to get there, then presumably it takes them 2 hours to get back, but they're home by 7 o'clock, and they have tea in Yalta. So yeah, I don't know. I guess that's the problem when you're going back and forth in time, is that you maybe kind of lose track of things. But anyway, we know for sure they have lunch in Yalta and tea in Yalta. So it just doesn't seem possible that it took them 2 hours to get to Labu, this forest, this destination of theirs. But anyway, we'll find out about that tomorrow, and specifically how that went. So come back for that. And yeah, let us savor these last few days in the Crimea. Although I can say that it's not just Dmitri who's ready for a change of scenery. I'm also anxious now to get back to Moscow. And we'll also have a stay in Ilinskaya. So yeah, come back for all of that, and I'll see you next time.